We're back for Chapter 2.
Chapter 2 of My Hero Academia. Or Boku no Hero Academia if you're annoying.
Fanfiction.
Bakugo X Sludge Villain. Although Sludge Villain was killed in Chapter 1 by All Might. So where do we go from here?
You'll see.
I can only guess. Dekugo. No, I'd rather be reading Dekugo. Bakugo's super pregnant. So, where the fuck do we go from here? Why do I do this? Bakugo stumbled into his house, feeling like he was ready to drop any second. The 2 eggs the villain had deposited deep inside his abdomen had begun to weigh more heavily the further he dragged himself home. His breaths were coming in short bursts, but he persevered, ignoring the sound of his mother inquiring where he had been from the kitchen when he entered the house. He slammed the bathroom door behind him when he finally made his way inside and slid into the cold tile floor, his arms clasped around him, his midsection in an attempt to quell the increasing discomfort. The idea disgusted him. Bakugo pulled his pants down. He didn't know what effects those eggs would have on his body or what the hell they'd hatch into. He had to get them out. And with the way he... So go to the fucking hospital. And with the way he could feel one of them descending lower inside of him, he knew he was going to have to force himself to deal with it. A knock on the door caused him to nearly jump from his skin. "Hey, Katsuki, I'm going to my appointment," came the muffled voice of his mother from the other side of the door. "Haven't you heard of privacy, you dumb bitch?" Bakugo yelled back, breath hitching first time he tried to speak. Why wouldn't she just leave him alone? "Don't you talk to me that way, you spoiled brat! I fucking made you! I can unmake you!" His mother barked back. The handle to the bathroom started shaking vigorously, his mother determined to give him a good slap regardless of whether or not he was on the toilet. "Ah, fuck, sorry!" Bakugo groaned. He'd say anything to get her to go away. The first egg had made its way down and was now pushing against his insides, still slicked from the slime monster's attack. His apology seemed to be enough for his mother as the doorknob stilled and Bakugo heard retreating footsteps and muttering he couldn't be bothered to try and make out. The egg felt enormous inside of him, way bigger than it was when it was inserted. It dragged across his prostate on the way down, sending spikes of pleasure through the explosive boy, so massive that when he attempted to push was finally pressed up against the rim of his hole barely gave any way before sucking the egg back inside of him, crushing up against his prostate on the way back in, making him see stars once again. I've never been in this situation. But if something like that was happening to me, and, it was flicking my prostate on the way in and out, I'd probably still be having a bad time. He pushed, and pushed again to no avail, growling in frustration as it continued to get pushed against his prostate every time he tried to get it out. His dick was completely hard by now, much to his dissatisfaction. He didn't want to believe he could get hard in the aftermath of his deepest violation, but here he was, hole still spread and stuffed full of villain cum. He panted with exertion, finally giving in and stuffing 2 of his fingers into his somehow still resilient hole. "You're young. Your insides are still taut yet malleable." He grunted, scissoring his fingers apart in an attempt to make his hole wide enough for the baseball-sized egg to pass. Mood. I've had poops where I felt like I needed to do that.
Come on, man.
Oh, yeah. I'm making this worse. I'm getting off track. Bakugo quickly realized 2 fingers wouldn't be enough, so he assumed a squat and inserted 2 more. He now had 2 fingers from each hand, spreading himself open as he squatted on the cold bathroom floor, and surely enough the egg began to give way. Bakugo attempted pulling himself open wider to accommodate for the egg's increasing width as the widest part reached him. Bakugo cursed and let out a sharp yell of pain when the egg finally fell to the floor with a thud beneath him. He doubled over, red-faced and gasping for air. His eyes were bleary and his hole burned as it attempted to close after the large solid object left his body.
Yeah, this is where it gets worse.
Bakugo's eyes widened. Not a second after he looked did the crack instantaneously burst open. A creature akin to the slime villain had come out of the egg, undulating on the floor, but this creature didn't seem to have a face like the villain, nor did it have the dark black color he sported. Instead, it seemed to be devoid of any color whatsoever. Bakugo jumped back, knocking into a cabinet, rattling the contents and causing him to curse. The loud noise seemed to trigger the creature's reflexes. It lunged towards Bakugo. The mixture of shock and tired he did nothing to help him, as the creature immediately latched onto his naked waist and began forcing its way back inside him.
There we go.
Panic overrode Bakugo's senses. No fucking way was he going to get taken advantage of again in his own house. He desperately tried to yank the creature out of himself, but all it did was suction his hands into its body, effectively trapping his hands in front of him by his crotch, causing him to fall forward.
You're getting quiet, baby.
I want to die. He tried to get a spark off, small enough to blow the creature off, but hopefully not big enough to blow up his dick. Either way, it did not seem to matter, because when he tried to use his quirk, he was met with no result whatsoever. What the hell? Was this thing absorbing his quirk like the villain had? Without his hands, he was off balance, helplessly. Bakugo crashed to the floor on his front, hands trapped by his crotch. Nothing softened the fall for his face. He could do nothing as the creature forced more and more of its translucent, shiny body inside of him, expanding past what Bakugo thought any human should take. Fuck! Bakugo screamed. The creature had started thrusting in and out of his hole, adding more and more of itself, all the while continuously expanding inside the boy. He couldn't help his cries. Every thrust mashed into his prostate, torturing his already hard dick with even more unwanted pleasure. Bakugo swore his vision was going white when... Kachan?
Here you go.
What the actual fuck?
You said you'd rather read Dekugo. It's happening.
Fuck you, bitch.
It's happening.
Because now is the perfect time for it.
It is.
Whee! Surprise! Party popper. Dekugo. Izuku couldn't believe what he was seeing. Bakugo pinned down, naked from the waist down, red-faced and moaning, being fucked by some clear alien slime that allowed Izuku to see Katsuki's raw insides being fucked open way too perfectly. Kachan's mom had let him in the house. He had run into her leaving the driveway when he had He explained he was concerned about Kachan's well-being. She happily unlocked the door for him, stating it was about time Katsuki had some real friends again. When he had gotten inside, he'd shuffled around awkwardly until he heard the very distinct sound of Kachan cursing, but something about his voice had seemed off. Instead of sounding normal and enraged, it practically sounded like Kachan was crying. Now Izuku could see why. Kachan, what? Midoriya stuttered out, trying to wrap his mind around what he was seeing. Deku, get the fuck out of here! Bakugo roared, tears. But it was too late. The creature had been startled by Izuku's loud entrance and lunged for him, leaving Kachan's body all at once as it attempted its assault. Izuku barely had time to process the thing flying right for him before he was suddenly met with an enormous surge of force and heat, the creature's body splattering apart across the bathroom. Bakugo had taken a moment. His hands had gotten free and immediately blown the slime monster to oblivion the first chance he got. Izuku couldn't resist the urge to catch Kachan when the boy fell back to his hands and knees. "Don't fucking touch me, you useless piece of shit!" Kachan growled, aggressively shoving Midoriya away when he tried to lay a hand on the boy. "Kachan, are you okay? This was a villain attack. We have to go to the police," Izuku said, tears welling in his eyes. He was still coming to terms that he had walked in on Kachan being raped in his own home. He was sick. But the image of Kachan's red, tear-stained face had sent shivers down his spine. He's into humiliation. "No," Kachan barked out way too quickly. "I'm fucking fine. We are not going to the police. Do not tell anyone what you saw here." There was anger in his voice, but Izuku saw there was almost pleading in his eyes. "All right, no police, but we still need to get you to a hospital right away." Izuku knew that the first plan of action should be to call the cops, but Kachan looked so desperate, almost like he was scared, but that didn't mean he didn't need medical attention. No hospital, they'll tell." Kachan growled through grit teeth. He was clutching his abdomen as though he was in immense pain. I have to get the other one out." Other one? You mean there's another one of those things inside you? "No, you stupid fuck, god damn it. Why the hell did it have to be you of all people?" Kachan looked like he was on the brink of tears again. "But you said..." "Villain earlier, with all my... Kachan paused and groaned, clearly trying to force himself to come up with the words. "He put 2 sort of eggs inside me. That thing you saw hatched from the first one when it came out." Bakugo doubled over again, trembling. He hadn't even tried pulling his pants back up, overwhelmed by the feeling the second egg, which somehow felt impossibly larger than the first. Izuku was reeling, so Kachan and the villain? If All Might hadn't saved him from the villain, he had been caught. Kachan's desperate eyes right in front of everyone, and no one had known or been able to help him. He hadn't been able to save him. He was interrupted from his internal panic by another gasp of pain from Kachan, this time practically a sob. "It's not moving at all." "Kachan, please, at least let me help you get it out." Kachan's eyes snapped up. The sound he made could almost be described as a laugh. "It's bad enough you're seeing this shit after risking your idiotic ass to try and play hero. And now you're trying to help by sticking your fingers up my ass? Fuck off," the blonde said, breaths coming in pants. Izuku blushed at the explosive boy's crude statement, realizing now what he had proposed to do, but that didn't make his determination waver.
Gambate.
Gambate! "You won't go to the hospital, and you said it's not moving. This could be really dangerous. What if it hatches inside of you?" Bakugo paled at the thought. The first creature had felt like it would have been impossible to fit all of it inside of him, and since Deku had shown up, he thankfully had been able to avoid that. The second egg felt bigger than the first, There was no way he could handle a second slime bursting open and growing already inside of him. Fuck it, fine! Bakugo conceded, now genuinely afraid of what was to come, although he was still low-key debating what was worse, Deku helping him lay a goddamn egg, or potentially being torn apart from the inside. Izuku felt like he had to be in some sort of twisted dream. Come true! Here he was in Bakugo Katsuki's bedroom after years with Bakugo lying back against his headrest, legs spread naked from the waist down. Kacchan was trembling, but Izuku could tell he was desperately straining, trying to act like he was indifferent. It's fucking deep, I can't reach it myself! Izuku took a deep breath. Kacchan's hole was clearly still slick from the slime creature fucking him only minutes prior. He didn't know where to begin, not really, so he decided it might be best for the both of them if he simply didn't hesitate. He prodded at the waiting hole cautiously. He glanced briefly at the ashen blonde's face, somewhat terrified to make eye contact, only to find Kacchan red-faced with his eyes scrunched tight, turning his face pointedly away from him. Izuku realized he was foolish to think that this would be even more embarrassing for him than it probably was for his childhood friend. If Deku is like wrist deep in Kacchan and starts sucking his dick, I'm out. How am I not out already? Fuck me, right? With newfound confidence, he pushed 2 fingers in. They slid in easily enough. Kacchan's breath hitched, caused by the freckled boy's heart to skip a beat. Nevertheless, he continued onward, adding a third, then a fourth. Kacchan's teeth were grit tightly. He could tell the other boy was doing everything in his power not to cry out. Izuku took his time, gently trying to pry his fingers open against what was now a much tighter resistance. He couldn't help but think about how warm and soft Kacchan's insides were, how tight and wet he would probably feel around him if he just... Izuku shook his head. He was supposed to be helping his friend get through this, but... Kacchan? Izuku said, his voice cracking slightly, breaking the silence that till then had only been filled with heavy breathing. What the fuck do you want, Deku? Bakugo breathed, not sounding nearly as intense as he normally did, but pissed nonetheless. I don't think I can reach it from this angle. I'm gonna need you to turn around. Fucking damn it. Shit, good for nothing, Deku. Bakugo growled as he shifted to his knees before turning around. Izuku hadn't expected Kacchan to comply as easily as he did, but perhaps Kacchan was in a lot more pain than he had originally thought. Now with Kacchan turned around, he had much easier access to the other boy's hole. Come to think of it, Kacchan had an amazing ass, toned, smooth, and perky enough that Izuku briefly contemplated smacking it before coming to the conclusion that would most definitely mean certain death. It was a shame the explosive boy always wore baggy pants. Fucking kill me. Dekugo didn't think about it before graciously resuming what he had been doing before by shoving 4 of his fingers back into the waiting hole all at once, surprising the hell out of the other boy. Oh god, what the fuck? Kacchan half screamed, half moaned, fuck you, upon this sudden intrusion. So sorry, Izuku yelped, but Kacchan didn't seem to hear him and instead was letting out small moans into the pillows beneath him. Izuku moved his fingers, pushing them against the spot that he had jabbed before with his intrusion, only to find that Kacchan immediately tensed up and let out another loud whimpering moan. Don't touch me there! Kacchan turned his head to the side in an attempt glaring at Izuku, but Izuku didn't hear him, or rather he chose not to. Instead, zeroing in on the noises Kacchan made every time he hit that sweet spot. He could feel the hard surface of the egg inside of the other boy, slick and just barely pliable, pressing up against the very tips of his fingers. Foregoing the sweet spot, he tried to push his fingers as deep as they would go while spreading them apart, earning him a deep groan from Kachan, who had buried his face deeply into his pillow. I can't grab it like this. I think you're going to need to push while I hold you open. This is fucking obscene. Kachan let out another groan in response. You jack off to this? But Izuku could feel his walls contracting around the egg.
Don't kink shame me.
And his fingers as he held his asshole open. Revealing the pink, slick inside to the open air, Izuku was mesmerized by the sight until he was interrupted by another groan of frustration. Feeling around, he was shocked to find out that in attempting to push it out, Katsuki had somehow managed to make it go deeper. Let's go have a fucking egg beater and give him an abortion, for fuck's sake. Ugh, damn it, this is useless! Kachan sounded close to tears, but Izuku didn't point it out. Kachan, I think I can get it out, but it might be painful. Whatever, anything, just get this thing out of me already. Maybe it was in the desperation in his voice that made the green-haired boy not think twice about folding his thumb into his palm and pressing forward. Kachan's noises of distress growing louder and louder, his whole being stretched to what surely must have been the limit, till... Kachan screamed as the widest point of Izuku's hand breached his hole and now sat deep inside of him. His hole twitched madly around Izuku's wrist, trapping the other's whole hand deep inside of him.
I mean, he's not sucking his dick, but it's basically what you said.
Izuku stared in awe. Not in panic or desperation, but awe. Kachan had taken his entire hand.
I mean, I'd be in awe.
The sight of his hole closed around his wrist, along with the choked noises leaving Kachan's throat, sent even more blood south in Izuku's body. He slowly began trying to open his hand. The passage was incredibly tight. There was no way he'd be able to open his hand and grab the egg like this. Carefully, he pushed forward and tried to make a fist to enlarge the passage from where the egg was to Kachan's entrance, but when he did, he pressed up against that spot inside Kachan. It caused the other boy to cry out in pleasure and see white. Spurred on by this, Izuku closed his hand and began pumping his fist in and out, making sure his knuckles pressed up against that place. That made Kachan squirm. Deku, stop it! You're not supposed to fucking... Okay, so here's a... Alright, it's gonna be a long row of text when Midoriya talks to himself.
It's his muttering.
Yep, here we go. Kachan's hole is too tight, and in order for me to grab the egg, I need to make it wider. Kachan's weak spot is right here, and even though he doesn't want me to touch it, it clearly feels good. Maybe Kachan doesn't want me to touch it out of pride, but with my whole hand inside, I doubt I would be able to avoid it even if I tried. If he'll relax if he comes, maybe then I could get it. Oh my god, I have my entire hand inside of Kachan. I'm fisting him open. He's so hot and warm inside. He's not going to be as tight after this, but I want to make him cry out more. I want to be inside of Kachan. Izuku mumbled to himself. He didn't stop pumping his arm in and out, going from shallow to fast thrusts and longer, deeper ones that pushed all the way to where the egg sat. Stop fucking talking to yourself, you bastard! I'll fucking kill you! Kachan moaned. He was completely red in the face, no bite in his voice. His eyes were glazed over and teary. Drool ran down the sides of his mouth. He simply didn't have space in his lust-filled mind to care about. Izuku thrust his fist relentlessly until finally he felt like Kachan was ready. He pushed up against the egg inside Kachan and began prying his fingers open once more to get a grip on the round, slippery object. This time he was successful in grabbing it, despite the way Kachan's body attempted to tense. Too open now to give him much resistance. Alright, Kachan, I have got it now. I'm going to start pulling it out. You just need to relax. Kachan made an unintelligible noise from beyond the pillow that he had stuffed between his teeth, while Izuku spread him open even further. This time, Izuku moved slowly, the intrusion off his hand wrapped around the egg, much larger than his fist alone. Kachan couldn't help but let out choked whimpers. Further down, Izuku pulled the egg towards his entrance. He practically shrieked when Izuku and the egg pressed up against his prostate with crushing force, causing his eyes to roll back in his head in the sheer intensity. Izuku had just reached the entrance that had been previously wrapped tightly around his wrist and forearm and began working his way out when... Stop! Kachan cried out desperately, real tears brimming in his eyes. It's too much! I'm gonna die if you take it out like that. You could do it, Kachan. You just need to relax, Izuku said adamantly. You've been doing so well. I can't relax. It's too much fun. Katsuki's hands scrabbled at the sheets below him, looking for anything to latch onto. Oh, anything you say? As Izuku forcefully pushed his arm and the egg deep back into Kachan's body, deliberately pressing the both up against the explosive boy's prostate as intensely as he could, causing Kachan to cut himself off and instead let out a broken sob as he came all over the sheets beneath him in a flash of blinding pain and pleasure. Izuku couldn't help but palm himself through his pants to completion. As Kachan spasmed through his orgasm around his wrist, he came with a soft groan, hoping that Kachan was too busy to notice. He had gotten himself off. He took the opportunity to quickly pull his hand and the egg from the boy's now gaping hole. The egg landed with a soft thud on the bed, soaking it further with the slick, clear fluid that had been inside of Kachan's asshole. Kachan had collapsed onto his side as soon as the waves of orgasm subsided with tiny choked sobs. Izuku let out a sigh of relief before he was alerted by the sound of a crack. He realized in horror that as soon as the egg made contact with the air, it had fractured. His heart raced with panic. Another one was going to hatch. Kachan, something's coming out of the egg! Boom! No, it fucking isn't, Kachan said, a smoking hole in his mattress right between Izuku's knees where the egg had been laying. Now get the hell out! Normally, Izuku would have been terrified at this point, but Kachan's voice was so raspy and tired, and so very not Bakugo, like it stirred in his gut. Are you sure you don't need anything? What about the villain? Oh my god, the villain, we just took care of the rest. I swear to fucking god, if you tell anyone about this, or speak of it again, I will blow your ass up so hard, they won't have a body to put the funeral casket, Kachan threatened. I'm going to fucking bed. Stay or go, but I better not see you when I wake up. And with that, Kachan rolled over in his bed. Izuku hesitated for a moment before realizing that Kachan had passed out immediately. He couldn't help but chuckle. The situation deserving of a chuckle. And how in character it was for Kachan to use literally all of his remaining energy to dish out death threats even when he was on the verge of unconsciousness. Izuku left the house quietly, not daring to try and wake Kachan. His mind replayed images from what had just transpired. A part of him feeling incredibly guilty, but another part of him was reeling at the fact that he had always seen the in-control bully fall apart at his own hands. Images of Kachan, red-faced and desperate, the noises he had made, his unguarded sleeping in his fucking, I'm so tired. Guilty or not, Izuku hoped he could see those again someday.
How was that?
That was...
A lot?
I quit. I quit this YouTube. I quit our marriage. I quit life. I'm gonna just eat this pillow until I die.